To truly value yourself is to recognize the sacredness of your own being, to understand that your presence in this world is not contingent upon anyone's approval, nor dependent on the fleeting whims of external circumstances. It is to stand firmly within your own light, even when the shadows of doubt, comparison, and expectation attempt to dim it. Valuing yourself above all is not an act of arrogance, nor is it a shield to isolate from the world. It is an inner declaration that your life, your choices, and your essence hold an intrinsic worth that no one can take away. It begins with awareness, the quiet noticing of how often we seek validation from others, how often we measure ourselves by standards not our own, and how easily we forget that the truest measure of our value is the alignment with our own heart, our own principles, our own truth. When you embrace the practice of valuing yourself, you begin to notice subtle shifts in how you navigate life. The energy that once scattered into trying to please others or to fit into molds that never felt natural starts to return to you. You reclaim it. Each word you speak, each decision you make carries a weight, a resonance born not of desperation for acceptance, but of the calm certainty that comes from knowing who you are. Men, and indeed all those around you, perceive this energy. It is magnetic, not because it demands attention, but because it radiates a quiet confidence, a knowing that cannot be feigned. It is in the way you walk into a room without hesitation, in the way your eyes meet another's gaze without shrinking, in the way your presence fills space without taking it over. Valuing yourself above all also requires discernment. It asks that you examine where your energy goes, who you allow into your life, and what you are willing to compromise for. When you understand your own worth, the trivialities, the games, and the manipulations lose their power over you. You no longer settle for less than what aligns with your standards because you recognize that doing so would be a betrayal of yourself. You begin to see patterns in relationships, interactions, and encounters where respect is lacking, and instead of forcing connection, you allow the natural flow to move as it must. This does not make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you grounded, and grounded people exude a stability that others cannot ignore. There is also an internal dialogue that accompanies valuing yourself above all. It is gentle yet firm, a voice that guides without judgment. It reminds you that your needs are valid, your desires are valid, and your time and energy are precious. This voice encourages you to speak your truth even when it is uncomfortable, to stand in your boundaries even when others resist, and to cultivate spaces that honor your growth. It is in listening to this voice and in acting upon it that your presence becomes a mirror for others to see themselves clearly. Men treat women differently when they witness this kind of self-respect because they feel it. Respect attracts respect, strength attracts strength, authenticity attracts authenticity. Valuing yourself is also an ongoing practice, a daily cultivation rather than a static achievement. There will be days when doubt creeps in, when past experiences whisper that you are not enough, when the expectations of society tempt you to compare and diminish yourself. Yet the act of returning to your center, of breathing through those insecurities and reminding yourself of your inherent worth is where true power lies. Each choice to honor yourself, to speak from a place of integrity, and to act with intentionality reinforces the understanding that your value is not conditional. It is not given by others, nor does it fluctuate with circumstances. It exists as a constant, an inner lighthouse guiding your path through uncertainty. When you value yourself above all, you also begin to see the world differently. You recognize that love, respect, and kindness are reflections of what you already embody, not currencies to be earned or bought. Relationships become partnerships, not transactions. Encounters become opportunities for genuine connection, not arenas for validation. You approach life with a sense of sovereignty, aware that while others may influence you, no one can define you. The way men respond is a natural consequence of this awareness. They sense the boundaryless confidence, the self-possession, the refusal to compromise inner truth, and it commands attention without coercion. Even in moments of vulnerability, valuing yourself does not waver. It does not mean being impervious to pain, rejection, or disappointment. Rather, it means that when these experiences arise, you face them from a place of wholeness, knowing that your essence remains intact. You grieve, you feel, you reflect, and yet you do not allow external events to dictate your self-worth. This resilience, this steady grounding is profoundly magnetic. It is in this way that the simple act of valuing yourself above all transforms every interaction, every glance, every connection, creating a space where men, and indeed all people, cannot help but treat you differently. To live fully and authentically, one must understand the power of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built to isolate, nor shields crafted to keep people at a distance. They are the quiet, firm lines that define where your energy begins and ends, the subtle yet unwavering markers that communicate your value, your limits, and your self-respect. To embrace boundaries is to embrace your own dignity. It is to honor the spaces where your mind, heart, and soul need room to breathe, to grow, and to thrive. Many fear boundaries, mistaking them for coldness, rigidity, or indifference. Yet the truth is that boundaries are the very essence of strength, a strength that radiates outward in every interaction, every relationship, and every encounter. When a woman lives by her boundaries, men respond differently. This response is not born of fear or resistance, but of recognition. They sense the clarity in her energy, the certainty in her choices, the quiet insistence that she will not compromise her truth for the comfort of others. Boundaries are a reflection of inner power. When she says no, it is not a rejection of others, but a declaration of herself. When she steps back, it is not withdrawal, but an invitation to honor her rhythm. In these moments, men cannot ignore the resonance of authenticity. They are drawn to it because it reflects a level of self-possession and integrity that cannot be feigned or coerced. Boundaries are also a mirror, reflecting to others how you wish to be treated. Without boundaries, the world often assumes that anything is permissible. Without boundaries, energy can be drained, respect can be overlooked, and identity can be compromised. Establishing clear boundaries is a conscious act of self-care, a recognition that your time, attention, and energy are finite and sacred. It communicates that your presence is not to be taken for granted, that your trust is earned, and that your love is intentional rather than automatic. Men notice this distinction consciously or unconsciously. They notice when a woman carries herself with this quiet authority, and it changes the way they approach, respond, and interact with her. It is important to understand that boundaries do not require harshness or aggression. They are not built on fear, punishment, or control. Instead, they are rooted in clarity, compassion, and self-awareness. They are the calm articulation of what is acceptable, what is harmful, and what nurtures growth. They invite respect without demanding it through force. They create space for honest communication, for mutual understanding, and for alignment between values and actions. In this way, boundaries are an act of love, not only for oneself, but for those with whom one interacts. By being clear about what is permissible, a woman enables men to see her fully and respond appropriately, rather than being left to guess or test her limits. Living by boundaries also requires courage. It requires the willingness to face discomfort, to risk disappointment, and to potentially challenge expectations. Often society teaches women that pleasing others, accommodating desires, and minimizing conflict are signs of kindness or grace, yet true grace arises not from constant compliance, but from the ability to remain grounded in one's principles even when others resist, question, or misunderstand. A woman who embodies this strength does not yield her values for acceptance, nor does she dilute her energy for approval. She stands firm, quietly unshakable, and this steadiness commands respect. Men in turn respond with recognition, admiration, and a deeper awareness of her presence. Boundaries are also a tool of clarity in relationships. They teach discernment, allowing a woman to distinguish between what aligns with her values and what does not. They prevent confusion, resentment, and depletion by making intentions explicit. When she communicates her limits with honesty, she creates a space where men can engage with her authentically. This authenticity becomes magnetic, not because it is demanding, but because it resonates with the natural human desire for clarity, integrity, and alignment. A man treats a woman differently when he senses that her love, attention, and engagement are not automatic, but consciously given. It is this conscious offering that transforms interactions into experiences of respect and presence. Boundaries are also a reflection of self-respect, which is visible in the smallest gestures, tones, and choices. It is evident in the refusal to tolerate disrespect, in the willingness to step away from negativity, and in the insistence that her time and energy are honored. Men respond differently to women who carry this energy because it signals that she is complete, sovereign, and centered. There is no need to manipulate, to overcompensate, or to prove worthiness because her sense of self is already established. Boundaries, then, are not a barrier to connection. They are the very framework that allows connection to be genuine, deep, and enduring. Even in moments when she softens, when she opens her heart, when she allows intimacy and vulnerability, her boundaries remain a quiet presence. They do not vanish, they simply support her from beneath the surface, providing stability and protection. This balance between openness and structure, between compassion and clarity, creates an energy that is profoundly attractive. Men notice the difference between a woman who allows herself to be known fully while honoring her own limits and one who surrenders her power for approval. They respond with curiosity, respect, and often a deeper level of engagement because the energy she embodies is one of unshakable integrity. To live with presence over approval is to anchor yourself in the truth of your own being, to allow your actions, words, and choices to flow naturally from your inner alignment rather than from the desire to be seen, liked, or validated by others. It is a quiet revolution within the self, a daily practice of turning inward and discovering that the most powerful recognition is the recognition you give yourself. When a woman chooses presence over approval, she steps out of the endless cycle of seeking affirmation from the external world and instead cultivates a deep, unwavering connection with her own essence. This choice does not make her indifferent or detached. Rather, it grants her the freedom to engage fully and authentically without the weight of expectation or the constant pressure to perform according to someone else's standards. Presence over approval begins with awareness, the careful noticing of how often we bend, adjust, or diminish ourselves to meet someone else's expectations. Many spend years trying to earn the validation of others, believing that acceptance is a reward for conformity, yet this pursuit, though familiar, is empty. When approval becomes the compass by which we navigate life, we are no longer acting from authenticity, but from a conditioned fear of rejection. To shift from approval to presence requires courage, a willingness to face the discomfort of disapproval, and a steadfast commitment to your own principles and inner truth. It is in this space of self-possession that a woman's energy becomes magnetic, drawing respect and admiration without effort. Living with presence over approval means being fully immersed in the moment, whether alone or in the company of others. It is the ability to listen deeply, speak intentionally, and act consciously without the underlying need to manipulate perception or influence outcomes to gain favor. Men respond to this energy because it signals clarity, authenticity, and self-sufficiency. They sense the difference between someone who acts out of necessity for validation and someone who acts from a place of wholeness. The presence of a woman who prioritizes alignment over approval creates a resonance that cannot be ignored. It invites respect, genuine curiosity, and often a natural desire to engage on a deeper, more meaningful level. Presence over approval is also a discipline of attention. It is noticing your thoughts, emotions, and intentions, and understanding when they are influenced by the desire to be liked versus the impulse to act from truth. This discipline allows a woman to navigate relationships, work, and social interactions with calm, centered energy. She speaks when she has something to contribute, she sets limits when her boundaries are tested, and she observes when situations do not require her reaction. There is a quiet confidence in this approach, a sense that her energy is not to be scattered in pursuit of fleeting validation, but invested in ways that honor her values and priorities. Men, consciously or unconsciously, respond to this centered energy because it reflects strength, maturity, and integrity. Choosing presence over approval also transforms vulnerability. It allows a woman to show her authentic self with all her complexities without fear of judgment or rejection. She does not hide her desires, her ambitions, or her emotions to please someone else, nor does she shrink to make others feel comfortable. Instead, she offers herself fully, knowing that her worth is not determined by the acceptance of others. This authenticity creates a space where men can meet her without pretense, where interactions are no longer performances but genuine exchanges. Presence becomes the vessel through which connection flows naturally, effortlessly, and with clarity. This principle also applies to decisions and life choices. When a woman prioritizes presence over approval, she makes choices aligned with her own path rather than bending to societal pressure, familial expectation, or romantic influence. She recognizes that living a life for others' approval is ultimately a life of compromise, and compromise erodes the essence of who she is. Men treat women differently when they see this level of self-assurance because it signals that her attention, time, and energy are intentional and sacred. It communicates that she is a partner in her own life, not a participant in someone else's narrative. Presence over approval requires consistent practice. It is easy to slip into the comfort of seeking external validation, especially in a world that rewards popularity, charm, and performative behavior. Yet each moment that a woman chooses to act from presence, whether it is listening attentively without distraction, offering her opinion without fear, or stepping into a room without concern for judgment, she reinforces her self-possession. This cumulative energy becomes unmistakable, a steady pulse that shapes how others interact with her. Men respond differently because they are drawn to someone whose power is rooted not in seeking attention, but in being fully present in her own life. Even in moments of tension or conflict, presence over approval remains a guiding principle. It allows a woman to navigate difficult conversations, disagreements, and challenges with poise, integrity, and intentionality. She does not react impulsively to gain approval or to appease others. She responds consciously, grounded in her own truth. This approach transforms how men perceive her because they witness a depth of character, a clarity of intention, and a strength of self that cannot be easily swayed. Presence, in this sense, is not passive, it is active, deliberate, and deeply magnetic, drawing respect, admiration, and alignment without the need for coercion. To understand the power of silence is to begin to understand the depth of presence, the weight of intention, and the quiet command of self-possession. Silence is not emptiness, nor is it absence of thought. It is an energy, a force that carries clarity, authority, and subtle influence. It is a language that speaks louder than words because it is unshakable, grounded, and deliberate. When a woman learns to embrace silence, she taps into a reservoir of inner strength that others cannot manipulate, challenge, or diminish. Men respond differently to women who understand the power of silence because silence is a reflection of confidence, discernment, and unspoken wisdom, a presence that cannot be rushed or coerced, a stillness that demands attention without demanding it. Silence holds power because it allows space for observation, reflection, and understanding. It is in the quiet moments that a woman can truly see herself, others, and the dynamics of any situation with clarity. Speaking too quickly, reacting impulsively, or filling every moment with words can dilute energy, scatter intention, and obscure truth. When she chooses silence, she chooses to preserve her power, to assess before responding, and to allow her presence to communicate what words often cannot. Men sense this difference immediately. They notice when a woman is not hurried by the need to impress or persuade, when her energy is contained yet expansive, and when her quietude is not a retreat, but a deliberate statement of self-possession. Silence is also a form of boundary, a soft yet firm declaration that not everything needs to be shared, explained, or justified. A woman who understands the power of silence does not feel compelled to explain her choices, defend her actions, or negotiate her worth. This does not make her cold or unfeeling. Rather, it makes her whole, complete, and sovereign. Men treat women differently when they encounter this form of quiet authority because it communicates that her energy is not available to be taken lightly, that her trust, attention, and engagement are intentional, and that her presence carries weight and significance. Silence, in this sense, is a natural magnet, drawing respect, curiosity, and attentiveness without the need for effortful persuasion. Furthermore, silence is a tool of reflection and discernment. It allows a woman to pause, to feel the currents of emotion, and to respond from a place of intentionality rather than reaction. In conversations, interactions, or moments of tension, silence is not weakness. It is strength expressed through patience, composure, and wisdom. Men are drawn to this energy because it signals depth, stability, and self-awareness. They sense that she is not easily swayed, that her reactions are measured, and that her engagement is conscious rather than automatic. This creates an environment where interactions are meaningful, conversations are impactful, and connections are authentic. The power of silence also lies in its ability to cultivate mystery, magnetism, and subtle influence. When a woman does not feel the need to share everything, to explain every thought, or to fill every space with noise, she becomes a presence that invites attention and interest naturally. There is a rhythm to this energy, a cadence that communicates confidence without arrogance, curiosity without intrusion, and strength without aggression. Men respond differently because this quiet magnetism is rare and profound. It is not forced, it is not performative, it is a natural consequence of someone who understands that her worth, power, and influence do not depend on being constantly vocalized or validated. Silence also nurtures inner alignment. It creates the mental and emotional space to connect with one's values, intentions, and desires without distraction or distortion. In these moments of stillness, a woman can observe her thoughts, regulate her emotions, and clarify her path. This clarity manifests outwardly, influencing the way men perceive and interact with her. They notice the steadiness of her energy, the calm discernment in her responses, and the intentionality in her engagement. Men treat women differently when they encounter this grounded energy because it signals maturity, self-possession, and authenticity, qualities that cannot be fabricated or imitated. Even in the presence of uncertainty, conflict, or chaos, silence holds power. It allows a woman to navigate challenges with poise, responding when necessary, but never overextending her energy or compromising her principles. This does not mean avoidance or passivity. It means that her reactions are deliberate. Her presence is intentional, and her energy is preserved for what truly matters. Men respond to this with respect because they sense that her energy is not to be tested lightly, that her attention is not freely given, and that her engagement carries depth and significance. Silence is also a teacher. It teaches patience, discernment, and the art of presence. It allows a woman to hear what is unsaid, to feel what is unspoken, and to understand the dynamics of situations beyond the superficial level. Men treat women differently when they observe this depth because they sense an intelligence and awareness that goes beyond words, a strength that is rooted not in aggression, but in calm mastery. The presence of silence communicates that her energy is sovereign, that her power is innate, and that her engagement is a choice that men respect instinctively because it reflects a self-possession that is rare and magnetic. To live a life in which consistency is the foundation is to cultivate a presence that is unwavering, reliable, and deeply magnetic. Consistency is not merely the repetition of actions, it is the alignment of values, intentions, and behaviors over time, the quiet demonstration that what a woman says, believes, and acts upon is grounded in truth and integrity. It is in this alignment that trust is born, not through grand gestures or fleeting promises, but through the steady rhythm of presence, followed through, and reliability. Men, consciously or unconsciously, sense this energy, and they treat women differently when they recognize that her actions are not fleeting, her principles are not negotiable, and her essence is steadfast. Consistency builds trust because it communicates clarity and stability. When a woman consistently lives according to her values, others can predict neither weakness nor wavering. They know that she will show up as herself, fully and authentically, regardless of circumstance. This reliability is magnetic, not because it demands admiration, but because it radiates a quiet authority and self-possession. Men respond to this energy differently because it signals that her attention, her words, and her energy are dependable. It creates a sense of safety and respect, an understanding that her presence is not conditional, that her responses are not manipulative, and that her engagement is authentic rather than performative. Consistency also strengthens boundaries and self-respect. A woman who consistently honors her own principles communicates that she is not easily swayed by pressure, persuasion, or the expectations of others. Her standards are not arbitrary. They are rooted in self-awareness, discernment, and integrity. Men treat her differently because they recognize that she cannot be taken lightly, that her trust is earned, and that her energy is not to be scattered or compromised. In a world where inconsistency is often disguised as flexibility or charm, steadfastness becomes a rare and profoundly attractive quality. Beyond external perception, consistency builds internal alignment. It is a discipline of self-honesty and self-mastery, requiring a woman to confront the moments when she may feel tempted to act contrary to her values, to choose the easier path, or to appease others for temporary comfort. By choosing consistency, she cultivates inner strength, reinforcing her sense of self and her capacity to navigate life with calm authority. This inner alignment manifests outwardly, shaping the way men, and indeed all those around her, perceive, interact with, and respond to her presence. They recognize that her actions flow naturally from principle, not impulse, And this recognition alters the dynamics of engagement in subtle but profound ways. Consistency is also a reflection of trustworthiness in relationships. Trust is rarely built in a single gesture. It grows over time through repeated demonstrations of reliability, honesty, and integrity. A woman who is consistent in her words, actions, and intentions becomes someone whose presence is respected, whose guidance is valued, and whose engagement is sought. Men respond differently when they see that she does not waver with moods, circumstance, or opinion. They recognize that her energy is steady, her intentions are clear, and her engagement is sincere. This fosters not only respect but also a natural attraction to the depth and reliability she embodies. Furthermore, consistency amplifies the impact of her silence, her boundaries, and her self-possession. When a woman is consistent in how she communicates, responds, and upholds her values, her moments of quiet, her pauses, and her deliberate actions carry weight. Men notice this weight because it is not occasional or situational, it is habitual and true. Each consistent choice, each repeated act of alignment reinforces the understanding that she is trustworthy, centered, and self-possessed. In this way, consistency is a subtle yet powerful form of influence, shaping how others treat, honor, and engage with her. Consistency also nurtures credibility and respect. It allows others to rely on her judgment, her presence, and her commitments. It signals that she is a woman of her word, whose promises are not empty, whose attention is intentional, and whose energy is sacred. Men respond differently to this type of presence because it is a reflection of maturity, stability, and integrity. There is no guessing, no testing, no manipulation necessary. Her consistent alignment creates an environment where respect is natural, admiration is authentic, and engagement is conscious. Even in the face of adversity, challenge, or unpredictability, consistency remains a guiding principle. A woman who continues to act in accordance with her values, despite external pressures or internal discomfort, strengthens her character and reinforces her reliability. Men treat women differently in these moments because they perceive the depth of her resilience, the firmness of her principles, and the certainty of her self-possession. They understand at a fundamental level that her actions are not fleeting or performative, but arise from a deep-rooted alignment that is unshakable, unyielding, and magnetic. Consistency, therefore, is not merely a habit, it is a manifestation of inner strength and integrity. It is the steady heartbeat of self-respect, reliability, and authenticity. Men respond to it differently because they sense the profound security, clarity, and intentionality that it embodies. They see in her a reflection of what is rare and valuable, a woman who is whole-centered and unwavering in her truth. To embody grace under pressure is to cultivate an inner equilibrium that remains unshaken amidst the turbulence of life. It is the art of moving through challenges, adversity, and tension with a quiet composure that communicates strength without aggression, patience without passivity, and presence without pretense. Grace under pressure is not simply a skill. It is a reflection of character, a testament to the depth of self-awareness and the resilience of spirit. When a woman lives with grace under pressure, men treat her differently because they sense an energy that is steady, powerful, and magnetic, a force that cannot be manipulated, rushed, or unsettled. Grace under pressure begins with self-possession. It requires a woman to anchor herself in her values, her principles, and her inner truth, allowing these constants to guide her responses rather than external chaos or expectation. When confronted with conflict, disappointment, or challenge, she does not react impulsively out of fear, anger, or desperation. Instead, she observes, breathes, and responds with clarity. Men notice this presence because it signals reliability, intelligence, and emotional maturity. They are drawn not only to her composure, but also to the invisible strength that supports it, the quiet confidence that she will navigate any storm without losing herself. Living with grace under pressure also demands awareness of the subtleties of energy. A woman who embodies this principle understands the power of pause, of measured speech, and of deliberate action. She knows when to assert herself, when to listen, and when to step back, recognizing that not every challenge requires immediate reaction or visible effort. This awareness allows her to maintain equilibrium even when situations are tense or unpredictable. Men treat her differently because they sense this energy as a stabilizing force. They recognize that her calmness is not indifference, nor is it weakness, but an intentional alignment with strength, patience, and wisdom. Grace under pressure also involves emotional mastery. Life inevitably presents moments of frustration, fear, or discomfort. Yet a woman who lives by this principle does not allow these emotions to dictate her behavior or cloud her judgment. She acknowledges and feels them, yet she responds with intentionality rather than impulsivity. Men respond differently because they perceive that her emotional state is not contingent upon their actions or external events. Her energy remains grounded, her presence remains steady, and her responses carry weight. This creates a magnetic authority, a subtle influence that shapes how others engage with her, how they speak to her, and how they respect her space. Additionally, grace under pressure is a reflection of resilience. It is the ability to endure difficulties, maintain clarity of thought, and continue moving forward without compromise to integrity or vision. Challenges are inevitable in life. Unexpected situations, relational tensions, and professional obstacles arise, but the woman who embodies grace under pressure transforms these moments into demonstrations of poise, self-control, and quiet mastery. Men notice this resilience because it reflects a depth of character that cannot be taught or performed. It is lived, embodied, and palpable. Her consistency in navigating life's storms becomes a mirror of reliability and inner strength that naturally commands respect. Grace under pressure is also expressed in the ability to maintain dignity amidst scrutiny, criticism, or misunderstanding. A woman who has mastered this principle does not need to justify herself constantly, defend her choices aggressively, or react to every challenge with defensiveness. She holds her ground calmly, allowing her integrity to speak for itself. Men treat women differently when they witness this, because it communicates that she is sovereign in her self-worth, unshakable in her principles, and unaffected by superficial judgments. Her presence exudes a quiet authority that draws attention, respect, and genuine admiration. Furthermore, grace under pressure is a reflection of alignment between action and intention. A woman who responds to tension or challenge with clarity demonstrates that her behavior is deliberate, not reactive. She moves with purpose, speaks with intention, and acts from a place of grounded understanding. Men respond to this alignment because it signals authenticity and integrity, qualities that are rare and magnetic. They sense that her energy is not easily manipulated, her trust is not given frivolously, and her presence is neither performative nor conditional. Grace under pressure also influences the dynamics of relationships and interactions. In personal, professional, and social contexts, her steadiness allows others to feel seen, heard, and respected. Her energy creates a space where emotions are balanced, discussions are productive, and decisions are thoughtful. Men treat women differently when they encounter this quality because it transforms ordinary interactions into experiences of respect, trust, and meaningful engagement. They perceive that she carries herself with dignity and calmness that extends beyond superficial appearances, and this perception shapes how they respond, behave, and interact with her over time. Even in moments of extreme tension or unforeseen challenges, grace under pressure manifests as a quiet but profound influence. It allows a woman to navigate adversity with composure, clarity, and a sense of equilibrium that is deeply compelling. Men respond to this energy because they recognize that her strength is not fragile, her authority is not borrowed, and her presence is not contingent upon circumstance. Grace under pressure is both a shield and a magnet, a force that protects, sustains, and draws attention simultaneously.